Welcome to Season 2 of Let's Break Up, Toxic Workplace Stories. Join hosts Nicola and Gina as they tackle workplace toxicity head-on. Real-life stories, well-being, and standing against toxicity await you. Let's break up with toxic workplaces and create a revolution of positivity together.
As a disclaimer, Nicola and Gina's opinions are solely their own and don't represent professional advice. It's just their perspective, so form your own conclusions. Heads up, this podcast may contain adult content and explicit language. So let's dive in and break up with toxic workplaces.
What's
Hello.
up?
Good morning,
How-
Duke. How are you?
I'm doing quite well. Very
Oh.
excited about our discussion.
Ooh, stop it. We're a little bit excited too. We thought this would
We
be.
are too. We are.
Hey,
Because we're like,
hey.
we haven't actually had anyone who's like a man who wants to talk about toxic
Men.
men.
What?
I know.
Dude,
Men just
all
really love
day.
talking about themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, and Barbie. I mean, goodness. Oh, did you both saw it, right?
I've
Numerous
seen
times?
I
Barbie.
didn't.
You need to. It's cute, but it's also like. "Eee."
It's
No, I
cute,
would-
and then
I-
it's also subversive. It's so subversive.
Right.
I love
That's all right. So before we get into it, tell
Yeah.
us who you are, what you're going to talk about, and just
Where
a
you
little bit about yourself.
Yeah, where you calling from? Tell us all the deets.
it.
Mm-hmm.
All the deets. Okay, so my name's Jeff Harry. I live in Oakland, California. I
Mm-hmm.
run an organization called Rediscover Your Play, and the whole goal is to make work suck less. Because I travel all over the country and sometimes other parts of the world, and everyone just hates work right now. Like everyone is just so angry. I mean, and it's to the point that I talk to people a lot and they're just like, I don't even want to work, like any job. Like I'm just done. And I think of a
I
lot
would
of
like
it
to
has
not
to,
work.
yeah, right. Wouldn't that just be like amazing? Or heck, the amount of people that I've talked to where I'm like, universal basic income would give them freedom to pursue some art or some other
Mm-hmm.
thing that they actually want to do. As for my origin story is, did you ever see the movie Big with Tom Hanks? So I saw that movie when I was in 3rd grade, and I was like, you can play with toys for a living? And I was like, that's a job. So I started writing toy companies in 3rd grade, and then I did not stop until I got into the toy industry. And I don't know if you've ever gotten exactly what you've always wanted and then been so disappointed when
I feel like
you
that's
got it.
like I feel like we started hearing this story since we started doing this podcast. People are like, I got the job that I've always wanted,
Yep.
and then it was terrible, or I ended up hating the company that I
Yep.
used to love so much. It's like, yeah. So I haven't
Like, I was-
particularly had that, but
Like
Yeah.
I was working for a toy company thinking there would be toys, thinking there would be play, thinking there would be high fives and people that are happy. None of
And
that.
snacks.
Like, and definitely snacks, at least some snacks. But instead, it was just toxic people, a lot of egos, and a lot of like backstabbing. And I was like, what is happening? Like, where's the joy? Where's the fun? So I left. I was in New York at the time. I left there. I came to the San Francisco Bay Area. I piddled around for a while. I had no idea what I was doing. I did a bunch of odd jobs. And then I found a job on Craigslist, which is a super shady site in the US where, you know,
I feel like it's
usually,
gotten
like, pick up-
shadier.
it's even gotten shadier. You pick up furniture on that site or you have misconnections. But I found a job teaching kids engineering with Lego. So, and it was just like, ooh, I got to play with Lego for a living. And I joined this organization. It was only 7 people at the time. And us nerds were able to grow it into 400 people. And it
Mhm.
became like the largest Lego inspired STEM organization in the US. And while we did that, we got the attention of Silicon Valley. So then they were like, hey, do you do team building events? And we're like, of course we do. No, we didn't. We were just making stuff
You
up
always
as we went
say
along.
yes. Entrepreneur.
Always
just say
say
yes.
yes.
101.
Always say
yeah,
yes.
yeah,
Always say
yeah.
yes. Figure it out on the backside.
Figure it out on the back end, right? Like, so we
Yeah. Oh my
started
God, we've got a
building
whole
gigantic
program.
Right. We started
my God,
building
we've been doing it
gigantic
for 20
things out of
years.
Lego. Yeah. We started partnering with Lego. We started working with like Google and Facebook and all these companies. And I was expecting them to be the best, right? Because they're supposed to be so amazing. And they were toxic places too. There were a lot of people that were not happy at those jobs. And these were considered the best companies in the world. So then in like 2019, I created Rediscover Your Play because I was like, I want to make workshops that address why work sucks so much. So the first workshop I ever made was called Dealing with A-Holes in the Workplace Through Play. And I went to Boston. I went to Australia to speak about it. Yeah, I just went all over with my friend Gary Ware. And then since then, all of my workshops are about healing workplaces and just addressing toxicity and toxic masculinity in the workplace.
So when did you become aware, like when was the light bulb moment about the toxic masculinity at work?
Oh, well, I became aware of toxic masculinity in fifth grade when I was at the mall with my sisters and they got catcalled. And then and I was like, dudes are gross. Like that was one of my first conclusions. I was like, why is dudes so gross? And then I realized that I was like, oh, I'm a dude. Like, oh. So I had already like dealt with that many times with my sisters, with a lot of my friends that identify as women. But I knew it was toxicity in the workplace with like my first job at Toys R Us, but I didn't know it was toxic masculinity until I started to see that pattern at almost every company I was at, where a majority of the most incompetent leaders were men. And they also were the meanest. And then it wasn't even just that, but even the women that were also toxic embraced a lot of toxic masculine traits. So they started acting like a lot of the men because that's what was supposed to be like the type of leadership.
Right. That was the model of leadership.
That was the model.
In order to get ahead, they need to adopt those, ideals.
So I remember working for Toys R Us, right? And this was like 2000. So I was working for the corporate office.
Oh my God,
I
we're
got
all
in the
so
job.
old.
Wait, what?
We're all so old. I'm like,
I know.
I'm like 2000.
2000?
And I'm like,
let me tell you about
is.
black and white television, everybody. It was amazing.
Rotary
World War
phones.
II.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
we were just talking about this the other day, and I was like, do we all remember dial-up? And then you couldn't get a telephone call, like your mum would get a call and it would drop out your internet.
Oh my God, it was the worst.
And you'd be like, don't take calls. I'm like, IMing.
Right. Or do you remember when you're on a call with your friends or heaven forbid, you're the person you're dating and you had to bring the long cord into the bathroom? And then someone else would get on and you'd be like, get off the phone. I'm on the phone right now.
Like, is someone there? Are you breathing? Someone's breathing heavy. Who's there?
Is I know someone's there. Get off, Jeff. That's what I would do.
Okay, wait. We digress for a second because our telephone number, our home telephone number in South Africa was 1 digit off a radio station.
Yeah.
So we'd get these radio station calls and it would be like, can I talk to like so-and-so on the radio? And I'd be like, yeah, sure. Please hold the line. And I'd put just the phone next to the thing and just walk away.
That is amazing. So actually, this reminds me, and then I'll eventually answer your question, but this reminds me. So one of the reasons why I became so aware of toxic masculinity without knowing what the words were was my sisters would come home from like a fight with their boyfriend and they'd go right up to me and they go, if you do what he did to me, I'll cut your balls off. Like if you ever do this to a girl. But they never told me what they did. So I just didn't do anything during high school because I was like very scared of what might happen. So that made me aware. So yeah. So anyway, when I joined Toys R Us, I was at the corporate office in New Jersey. I was living in Brooklyn. And then 9/11 happened while I was there. And I lived in Brooklyn, but I was commuting to New Jersey. And right then and there, I was just like, I don't want to die in a cubicle. Like just seeing it happen firsthand.
Yeah, it was really traumatic.
Right near that. So that I left, but I stayed with Toys R Us and I helped open their store, their largest toy store in the world, the Times Square Toys R Us. It had the biggest Ferris wheel in a toy store ever, and it had literally had the Jurassic Park T-Rex from the first movie. And my job was to play with toys underneath the T-Rex. So I was like, this is a dope job. The way in which you got the job, you had to sing the Toys R Us theme song. So everyone's just like, I want to be a Toys R Us kid. Like everyone was like family, right? And then right after Christmas, family just disappeared and they just laid off everybody. They fired people at 3 a.m., like the whole night crew. They would have them work like a few hours, and then they just had cops escort them out, or security escort them out. Yep.
Like
and
with
as soon as
no
warning,
no warning,
and
nothing. Like
no warning. And then with us during the daytime, they would just ask us to go downstairs, and then you'd never see the person again, because again, they would get escorted out. And when that happened, I was 22 years old, and I was like, this is just not right. So I wrote a manifesto. I didn't know what it was, but I wrote this document outlining like how messed up that was. And I printed like 60 copies.
Oh
and
my
I just
God.
put him in mailboxes like Jerry Maguire, not realizing what I was doing. And then they thought I was trying to unionize the store when I didn't even know what I was doing, but I was just like, this is wrong.
You were just like
and
saying
then-
like you were
Yeah, go ahead.
pointing out a wrong that you saw.
Yeah.
Did you even know, like at that age and at that time, would you even know how to unionize anything?
No.
I wouldn't.
No,
I would have been like, what's a
someone
union?
came up to me and was like, you need to talk to this person. And I was like, about what? I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I was like, what does that actually mean to unionize? And that freaked them out because that was their flagship store. And if that happened there, then it could happen across the entire, country, if not bigger. Right. So then I started getting ostracized more and more. My hours got cut. Whenever I was speaking to 2 or 3 people, a manager would come over to break it up. And then I just eventually just left. I stayed with Toys R Us for a little bit longer. Like I transferred to their location in the West Coast because I just wanted to get out of New York. But yeah, that was my first experience of like, oh, like work kind of sucks when you have crappy leadership.
I mean,
Okay.
I don't know. You go ahead, Nicola.
Oh no, I was gonna say, okay, so we're starting to see toxic positivity. Oh my
You
God.
just love that topic.
We can talk about that too later. Yeah.
Oh, circle all the way back around. So you're seeing toxic masculinity from your sisters. All right. I'm curious to know, like, how did that change your thinking? Like, other than being terrified about losing your dick,
Yeah.
how did it change your thinking? Did you start identifying like situations where you're like, oh my God, like who are these people?
Yeah, I mean, because I always had more, female friends or women that identified as, identified that way than men. And just listening to their stories, I was always like, oh, I don't want to be that dude. Like, I can't be that dude. But when I started seeing it in the workplace, I saw it as just like a lot of insecurity, like masked in aggression. Right. So then, a few years later, I worked on the Obama campaign. Great organization at the time. They got him elected. That was awesome. But then there was this outgrowth of the Obama campaign called Organizing for America. And I worked for them. And I had a toxic masculine boss who was like clearly feeling insecure. And because of that, would constantly make these arbitrary metrics that we had to hit so that he looked good. And that just got it really exhausting, and just knowing the more and more I talked to him and realized like how insecure he was, a lot of things we were just doing just because this guy did not know who he was. And I was like, is this happening everywhere? I was like, why is this the case? So then of course, again, I left that organization, and the way I left that organization at the time was like 3 of us quit at the same time, and we were in charge of like running a pretty significant part of California in organizing around like healthcare and education. And they continued to hire toxic leaders. And I was like, I don't get it.
That's not for you. Yeah. What do you think? You said aggression and insecurity. So what do you think are like the traits of a toxically male leader?
That's I love that you asked that, as I'm literally about to do a workshop, a virtual workshop called Why Ted Lasso's Masculine and Feminine Leadership Matters. And where did I break it down here? So traits that I talk about a lot is bullying, avoiding losing at all costs, restraining one's emotions, during conflict, showing that strength through aggression, right? And then constantly trying to exhibit dominance while masking, insecurity and a certain level of weakness. So those are the traits that I've seen. And I talk about it all the time. Like, you see it in Elon Musk, you see it in Steve Jobs, you saw it in Jeff Bezos, you see it with the Wolf of Wall Street. And what's funny is all these dudes are celebrated. Like, they're all celebrated as like geniuses and monarchs of industry, and they're just as horrible as like Rockefeller and all those other people back in the 1930s and 40s of just exploiting people, and then doing a really good job, a really good PR job of making it look like they're really smart. When frankly, look what Elon Musk has done for Twitter, right? It's gone. It's literally done.
We have thoughts
right?
on that.
Right? Like he destroyed it, and I even walk through a whole method of like, October of 2022, he comes in with like a kitchen sink being like, I'm going to throw away everything but the kitchen sink. Remember that? Like, so
we
cocky.
literally spoke to someone from Twitter yesterday morning who told us that story.
Who was like, working during that takeover. And they said it was like a hostile takeover.
Yeah.
And so the person we interviewed said that Elon Musk brought the sink in to say, like, let that sink in. Like,
oh my gosh, it's just so stupid. Like,
which is even worse than I'm throwing everything out but the chicken, the kitchen sink, right?
The chicken
right,
sink.
the chicken sink. The chicken sink.
That's for a sink that's also a chicken.
Right. But he, they might have already expressed this, but like, the first thing he did was he got rid of all the employee resource groups. So any resource group that was around women leadership, any resource group around LGBTQ, any resource groups around, there was one called Blackbirds, which was Black women, taken away immediately, right? That was the first step he did to make it just an unsafe space. And then he started laying people off. And then he laid off way too many people that he didn't even realize that he had laid off way too many people. Like, it's unbelievable what he did.
The ex-Twitter employee said the majority of people who are left are people here on like H-1B visas.
Yeah, H-1 visa.
Like,
yep.
Okay.
So he has control over them.
Yeah,
yep.
That's exactly what this.
Did he talk about, or did the Twitter employee talk about the hardcore thing?
Yeah, where you have to sign like a loyalty thing, and went into that as well. It was.
So when he did that, and I could even share my screen if you want to see it, but when he did that, it showed, there's a really powerful photo of pre-Elon that shows a significant amount of women, and then post-Elon where all those dudes that like hung out with him at 1 a.m. and did code or whatever, and it's all these dudes that look just like him.
They did
like
code.
It's,
and then you were like, no, they did code.
Yeah, it was just like, dude, this is just ridiculous. So, yeah. And then he's like considered really smart when SpaceX is struggling, Tesla is losing money. Like,
and and I think at the end of the day, when we had that amazing interview with the ex-Twitter employee, we all came to the conclusion, like, do you think it can even be saved? And it's like, if he gets out of his own way, it could potentially be saved. But the way it looks right now, it doesn't seem that way. Like, I feel like this was a terrible investment on his part, and he even tried to back out of it.
Yeah. Because he really, and that's just one example, right? Like, I don't want to just like focus on him, but it's this idea of like, same example with Jeff Bezos. 1999 Jeff Bezos, a lot of people like that guy. That it was one of the coolest places, addressing one of some of the most interesting tech issues that people were facing at the time, right? Like, even like, can we even sell books online, right? So it was a place to be. But then he bought into his own BS, right? And now he's like launching, rockets into space that look like his Wang. Like, it's ridiculous that, like,
Also, like,
and
his whole body transformation from like,
I know,
like regular, like dad bod kind of, to like somebody who's on Anavar,
to a villain,
and
to a villain.
Hold on, I haven't seen this.
To
Let me
Lex
have a look.
Luthor. I mean, it's a great body transformation, but I feel like that, coupled with that immense wealth, makes people kind of like go a little nuts.
Yeah.
Oh my God, he does look like Lex Luthor.
Yeah, he is like
he looks exactly like him. And like, again, you get so detached from reality and you buy into your own BS. But tying it to Barbie, because I loved Barbie and how much they talked about the patriarchy, right? And they show like the patriarchy does not benefit most men. Like, most men are not Elon. Most men are not Jeff Bezos. But that is what's sold to you. That's what's sold to men. Like, you have to be this way. Like, there's even the whole Andrew Tate, Joe Rogan manosphere movement pushes this thing of like, you have to be a high value man, which means you have to have a lot of money, you have to have a lot of muscles, and that's when you start, and a really nice car and a house so that you can get the girl, right? And it's just like, dude, women don't even want that. Most women don't want just that. They want someone that has emotional intelligence, but we're not even focused on that. We're focused on trying to be like these toxic dudes, and
like these alpha males.
These fake alpha males, right? Because I even used to talk about this. Alpha male is not even a real thing.
So what do you think? So wait, now I'm interested in alpha male. What is the definition, in your opinion, of what an alpha male is, and why doesn't it actually exist?
So my understanding, and let me make sure I get this right.
Because I feel like,
so if you literally type in alpha male is fake, a bunch of articles come up about it, right? And so the term alpha male was first invented by David Mech. And what he was a scientist that was studying wolves, and he was studying wolves in captivity for a book called The Wolf: Ecology and Behavior of Endangered Species.
Makes sense.
So what he noticed was that he was studying wolves in captivity, but when he revised it, because those alpha males were the ones that were like top dog, and I have to be the best, and blah blah blah. But then when he changed that study in 1999, when he studied wolf packs out in the wild, and he found that there was no alpha male.
Somebody else brought this study up on one of our interviews. And I'm blanking who it was, but they said once the alpha male was removed from the pack, the sort of middle men, who were like helpful towards the women wolves.
No, this was monkeys. It was monkeys. And then
was it
all the monkeys died. Like, all the bad monkeys were taken out, and the whole system changed.
Like, it was so much more like peaceful and working towards a similar goal. And was that what this guy also found?
Well, no, this is slightly different. So David Mech found in 1999 that the wolf pack is run by a strong female and a strong male. Right. And they look out for the most vulnerable, the oldest of the wolves. And usually the strong female wolf is sometimes the strongest. So she walks from the back, covering the vulnerability. Right. And then anyone that exhibits certain alpha male qualities that is affecting the pack can get ostracized. Right. So really what the study of alpha males is, it's the study of insecure animals in captivity, like in a jail or something like that. So when a guy goes, I'm an alpha male, really what you're saying is you're a scared animal in prison. That's really what you're saying. So it's funny that we use the term And we're claiming the term because like that term is even incorrect. Like, you know, you don't want to be that because that is not actually healthy.
Why is alpha male almost used like interchangeably with, you know, with being a successful man?
Because in my opinion, us men are looking for a quick answer for how we show up, right? Like we don't know what it means to be a man, right? So we're like, you know, we're constantly looking for what that means. You know, you've always were told, especially if, you know, you had like a very patriarchal family of just like, be a man, suck it up, you know, don't cry, all these things. And if you grow up in that society where you feel very unsafe, then you're like, okay, I want to be a man. Who's a man here? That guy, the guy that's bullying everyone, or the guy that has all the power. I wouldn't say he's bullying everyone because I'd be like, that guy is the coolest. That guy is getting the most women. That guy has the most money. That guy has the most power. So I want to be that, right? That's usually what you do when you're coming from an insecure place. That's why a lot of dudes join frats when they first arrive to university, because again, they don't know who they are and they're scared that they'll look stupid. So if they join a frat, then they'll be surrounded by other men and they can act a little bit stronger, right? Like those are some of the things that we do because we're coming from a place of a lot of fear.
Okay, so what if you have someone who is successful, who can be aggressive, but is also kind, like aggressive when needed? Or you're like, that never happens?
I haven't seen that. Right? Like, you know, I talk a lot about healthy masculinity, and what's healthy masculinity? You know, your willingness to be vulnerable, your willingness to say that you're wrong, right? Like in parts of South Asia, men hold hands, straight men hold hands. If you did that in America, you'd be considered gay, which is so scary for a straight man to be told, because then that demasculates guys. If you notice, anytime a movie like Barbie comes out, or someone like, I think it was like Michael B. Jordan was like hugging another guy and he's a straight guy, they were like, why are women always trying to demasculate us? Like it triggers so many men that we're like, no, we're not allowed to be men anymore, right? Because they're so worried about power being taken from them. And they think that that is what's happening right now, especially because women are graduating at a faster rate than men. Women are beginning to earn more than men. And we're scrambling because we don't know what to do. So there's like been this backlash of men being like, oh, well, women are just gold diggers. Well, actually, that doesn't make sense. They make more money than us. They don't need our money anymore. So that's not a good argument. Well, they're, you know, they just hate men. And they just all want to be lesbians or something. They like just make all these, we make all these claims up because we don't want to face the reality of like, we haven't evolved. We haven't gotten better. We're still embracing a lot of the patriarchal things that were happening in the 1950s. And it scares us because we don't know how to get better as a society. So there's this really interesting comedian called Bill Burr.
Yeah, we know him.
And, you know, some people like him, some people, you know, he's all over the place, right? But he had this really good joke like 10 years ago where he talks about anytime a guy is with other guys, any straight guys, we're just talking straight guys, and a straight guy does something reasonable, like it's raining and he has an umbrella, he pulls out his umbrella, all the other guys will be like, look at this fucking guy with his umbrella, like what up, you know, what up, you know, and the derogatory gay term, right? The F term, right? And or like he orders pancakes with bananas and he's like, this guy ordered pancakes with the bananas. Do you want to stick that banana up your ass? Like,
oh my God, I was about to say that.
See? Like there's this constant trying to insult the guy by demasculating him and saying you're gay. When what's really interesting is so many things that a lot of straight men do, especially like sports like football, are quite intimate. Like you're putting your hand like right in that dude's ass as you're getting a ball, right? You know, when you wrestle, I just heard this when they wrestle, they'll stick a finger up each other's butts as like a way in as part of the strategy, right? Or like so weird stuff where like I think there's a lot of closeted gay men that are not able to express that. So then they go over the top with being like, I'm a man, I'm a straight man, and I'm going to make fun of you as much as possible. When we're all on a gender spectrum, right? Like when we're all like, can we embrace the fact that like I can find a guy attractive and also not want to sleep with this guy, right? But can you say that with other men? Oh no, that would be considered gay, right? So I think we overtly do those jokes as a way of masking the fact that like maybe we want to communicate a certain level of intimacy, but I can't.
That's where I ended up with. I was like, you know, like guys are so weird like that. And I asked him, I was like, do you think it's just like, you know, they really like each other, but they don't know how to be like that, like that's my guy. Like I really like him. I love it. Like we say that about our girlfriends, right? I'll be like, nobody needs to fuck with so and so because that's my girl. I got her. Like I love her so much. But that's not acceptable for men to say it. So then it comes out like on this like weird homosexual bashing kind of thing, which I don't understand.
Exactly. Because it's that whole thing of what I said earlier, right? Of just like think about it. The only time in which two straight men can hug in Western culture is when their team wins a championship. Like, can you like think about that? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like embrace and be like, I love you, man. You know, or like, or when you're drunk or something like that. Like it's either looked down upon. So then they don't know how to express this. So yeah, then it comes out in all these other weird, messed up sexual innuendo ways, you know, and then they're like, I'm just joking around. I'm joking the whole time. I'm joking. And then that same sexual innuendo stuff also then is very dangerous because then they actualize that with women that then can be very aggressive sexually to women because again, they don't know how to express themselves
like
and don't know how to be like friends with women as well.
Or like they weren't taught how to be intimate emotion. It's like emotional intimacy and emotional intelligence. It's like I think like especially in America, I think we're doing everyone a disservice by not like teaching like emotional maturity somehow. Like I don't know how you can teach it. That's not obviously not my forte, but like once I became emotionally mature, which I was a hard case, it took me a long time. Things got so much better. I became less angry. I like was a little bit more laid back. And it's like, you know, I guess men are just not taught like it's okay to talk about something that's bothering you. You don't have to walk around and be annoyed, you know, like say what's bothering you. It's not the end of the world. You know, say that so and so is my really good friend and I really like him. Like that sounds less homosexual, that just sounds like a blanket statement. Like there's no sexual innuendo, right? So why can't men just say that?
We didn't get to practice that. Like if we got to practice that as kids, then it wouldn't be that big of a deal now. But because we didn't get to practice that, and the only time we were able to communicate any level of intimacy was, you know, with our mom or something like that, right? And anytime like a woman showed us any level of like emotional, you know, safety, then we were like, oh, that woman must be attracted to me, rather than like that woman is just being a friend of mine, right? So we also then misinterpret how other people treat us because we've never been treated that way. A male leader, right, will fancy a certain girl or a certain woman, right? And then she doesn't give him the time of day, starts cutting projects, starts ostracizing her from meetings, starts punishing her in all these ways because that's his only way of getting back at her, because he showed her a side of vulnerability that now he's like very embarrassed that he showed to anybody.
So there is a level of embarrassment to it.
Oh, there's it's so much shame and embarrassment. Shame and embarrassment drives a lot of toxic behavior in men. right? Because like we don't want to look weak. We don't want to look like we're demasculated. We don't want to look like we don't know what we're doing. And think about it with the most toxic male leaders. When was the last time you ever heard them say, I don't know, right? Like they are beyond sometimes delusional in their narcissism. Remember Fire Festival guy? Do you remember that dude?
Oh my God, yes, what a twat. And now they're doing Fire too. I can't even deal with my life.
Right, Nicola? Like that dude has the caucasity, not even the audacity.
Oh my God, that
caucasity.
is the best terminology I think I've ever heard in my lifetime. That guy, like, how the fuck has he decided that he is fucking what are they going to get this time? Like a fucking chicken wrap.
You just went to jail for this. Like it did. You just went to jail for Fire Festival. And then in jail, you were like, you know what I got an idea for? Another Fire Festival.
Oh boy.
What?
Do I have the plan for you.
And he believes people are going to invest. And you know what's the crazy part? Some people might. Some crazy, sad individuals might.
Okay, I'll tell you why they're going to invest. They're going to invest because they want their name attached to the shit show because that got huge publicity. They're going to invest because they want the connection. And you know what? People are going to go because people want to see the chaos.
They want. But yeah, it's going to be like Burning Man, but worse. You know,
like
it's just going to get, you're going to get stranded. But yeah, but the caucasity of some men, you know, is beyond reproach. Like you just are amazed at their boldness. And especially after they've either gone to jail or lost a ton of money. The WeWork guy is another great example. Loses $1 billion at WeWork. Got funded for $100 million new fund. Like, why are people continuing to give him money?
He's just got big dick energy. And then he comes in with his big dick energy and just gets all the money.
From, I'm assuming, small penis dudes that also are like, I love this man. Yeah.
It's bizarre.
But he's bizarre. Like, to me, he's like the definition of a cult leader. Like he has like it's even beyond toxic masculinity. It's like he's
like another level.
Yeah, he has the ability to sell you like this is what in my mind I equate it to. Whoever came up, we're all old enough to remember this. Do you remember when you could buy a star?
Oh my God, I bought a star.
Oh yeah.
What a fucking scam, right? You're literally getting a piece of paper that says you bought this star and you're paying like $99. That guy fucking laughed all the way to the goddamn bank. And I'm still pissed that I didn't think about it first, right?
That's true.
So the WeWork guy, what's his name again? I forgot. It's
Adam Newman, I think.
Adam Newman, right. Okay.
Yeah.
He is the living, breathing, buying a star certificate. He's selling them nothing. Because literally it wasn't
selling community.
Right. But really, when it came down to it, it was just like shitty offices in an open work setting.
Yep.
It wasn't a tech app. It wasn't an app of any kind. He was literally just selling rental office spaces.
Yes.
Which is like, let me give you a ton of money so I could be part of this. Which also reminds me of Billy McFarland when he came out with that card that remember it was like the X card and there was like the X townhouse
card. Yep.
Right. Whatever it was called. And I remember when it first came out, one of my potential clients was like, well, we have an X card and maybe you want to meet at the X townhouse. And for some reason, I was like, this just is gross. And I was like, I'm sorry, I'm traveling, even though I wasn't. I was like, I'm not going to be able to meet there or ever, period. And like,
but is this like an MLM bank card?
Yeah.
It kind of. I mean, and I think he misappropriated all the funds. Like it was a whole disaster. But again, these are people who have the ability to like charm you through words.
Yeah.
And become like larger than life characters. But they're selling you nothing.
Yeah.
Yes, Nick, they're selling you the star.
Right. But think about what they're doing. They identify where you feel insecure, right? Fire Festival. You don't want to have FOMO. You want to be at this party. If you're not at this party, you're irrelevant, right? WeWork, you got to join this train before, or you're again not going to be relevant
You're
in
a
the greater
loser.
scheme of things. You're going to be a loser.
You can't come to the WeWork events on the weekend, which literally sounded god awful.
Right. And he even started a We School at one point. Like he had bought into so much. But and this might sound a little controversial. I don't just blame them. I, in many ways, blame also everyone that promotes them, everyone that supports them. So great example, Wolf of Wall Street guy, right? Goes to jail for ripping people off. They make a movie about him. He now is on MSNBC and CNBC on a regular basis. Like,
and
they
he's
call
telling
him
people
in.
how not to get conned. The original
He's telling people how to invest money, and you're like, dude, this dude ripped off hundreds of millions of people. Why are we listening to him?
It's not even just that. It's like you're being rewarded.
Yes.
For
being
doing
criminal.
naughty shit.
Yes.
So where is the social justice here? So does that mean that I can go and be a fraudulent fraudster and I'm going to go to prison for like 2 minutes and be like, hello, here is my investment strategy.
They go to jail for a shorter period of time than someone that robs a liquor store.
Oh,
okay?
No, for someone
especially
that
if they're a person of color.
A minimal amount of marijuana.
Right. So you know, this might sound weird or slightly controversial, but like, why do you think there's so much crime happening around at least the US right now? Is because everyone that you watch on TV is breaking the law, from a former president to the Supreme Court to all these people in corporate, and they're getting away with it. So then why won't I break into a car and just steal stuff? Everyone else is getting theirs, right? Like, the moral compass is so skewed now.
You know, when you take a compass to like a location and there's just like magnets or whatever in the mountain and the compass goes...
It's like what you're saying, because everyone in our society is like being rewarded for doing criminal things.
Yeah.
And so and she was like truly
and
shocked.
Only some of these are being policed, right?
Right.
Some people are being policed and others are allowed to do whatever they want. And I think, you know, and I've talked about this before, but like, the origins of police in the US, at least, comes from slavery. It comes from slave patrols. The whole point, that's why loitering is a crime, because when, you know, slaves would be walking around or walking outside of their plantation, slave patrols would round them up and send them back to their slave plantation. So to this day, the police, or at least many of it, is to police a certain part of society, right? While other people are allowed to break whatever laws they want to break, and no one cares. Like, everyone, exactly. So, you know, when you look at certain professions like police, like I think this also happens with firefighters a little bit, pilots. You know, there's certain professions where toxic masculinity thrives even more, because it's a lot of it it's about power. It's a lot of it of exerting a certain level of power, and that it's tough, man. It's tough to.
So circling back to what you said earlier, like, you're just seeing, okay, we're seeing it, you're seeing it. We're just seeing a whole bunch of people that are just hating their fucking jobs, right? We've got people left, right, and center, like, I just fucking hate my life. Do you think, and this is a question for both of you, because I'm curious to know, because like, as we're talking, it's kind of making my, you know, brain juice moderately work, because
go ahead.
So we have these environments where we have toxic masculinity. We know we have a very strong patriarchal system. We're seeing some changes in some countries, but overall it's male, pale, stale up at the top.
Yeah.
Then you have the added like layers of, we've got, climate crisis. We've just come out the other end of COVID crisis. Now we're sliding like a train wreck into like this inflation, cost of living drama, just unobtainable expenses that, are just ridiculous. Do you think that this whole compounding shit show is really what is driving this? I actually just don't have the mental capacity to work. Like, this is awful.
Before Jeff answers, I just want to say, we all know that everything that's going on right now, like, especially in America, I could really only speak for America. Everyone's mental health in America is in the trash.
Yes.
It's in the trash.
Yes.
I think it was previously in the trash, but I think the pandemic, really highlighted it, because you couldn't get away from yourself because you were stuck in home. So it's like everywhere you go, there you are, right? So it's like, now you're really feeling like, oh my God, like I have racing thought, whatever, you're depressed, whatever the case is. So it's like, I think when I'm depressed and I do take medication for depression, which I've spoken about, I become non-functioning, and the last thing I want to do is work. I don't even want to get out of bed. I don't even want to open my eyes, let alone work.
Yeah.
Do you think it could potentially be, first of all, our whole world is like basically falling apart, but also depression? Like, is the American workforce just like very depressed? And I think,
yeah. I think there were a lot of epiphanies that Americans found out about the workplace during the pandemic. They knew that their companies didn't care about them, but they didn't realize to the extent. And when their companies were trying to force them back into work, and you saw places like Tyson Food where they forced their staff back into factories, and then people died. And you were like, and then you had Elon Musk being like, yeah, Tesla, you have to show up to, the car lines and whatever, things like that. And more people were put at risk. Then all of a sudden you were like, oh, not only do you not care about me, but you're willing to sacrifice my life so that you can make just a little bit more profit. And I think that just put people to the edge. That's why the Great Resignation happened the way it happened, and why Gen Z drove it, right? But what is interesting is, I find toxicity and toxic masculinity thrives in silence. That's what they want. They want everyone to be divided. They want you to feel as if everyone else is really bad. When this might sound weird, but this is this is the perfect opportunity, because the patriarchy seems so fragile right now. It's the fact that a movie like Barbie can threaten the patriarchy. It's a movie, for goodness. It's only 2 hours, people. Like, it's not that scary. And people are freaking out about it is awesome, right? The fact that you have men acting like children, like having temper tantrums. I just saw, I'm going to make a video about this, of like this pastor literally taking a bat, taping a Bible to it, and smashing a Barbie house, just to show that they're fighting wokeism, or whatever term they want to use. Like, this is the opportunity in many ways we've been looking for, because like it's had to get this bad for us to realize what's not working. Because in order for us to, for example, heal the planet, we need to embrace much more healthy femininity. We need to have a balance that currently is not existing, right? Where both masculine and feminine can exist in our leaders, right? I talk a lot about
Jacinda, like the monkey and the wolves.
Right. I talk a lot about Jacinda Ardern, the former New Zealand prime minister.
What a queen.
Healthy masculine, close the borders, set boundaries, did all these really things from a healthy masculine standpoint, but also healthy feminine, compassionate, empathetic, made sure people had money, made sure they had UBI, made sure they didn't have to go to the office. What happened? Lowest COVID rates, lowest COVID death rates in the world. This is what can happen when we celebrate leaders like that. Now, I know there are other issues with her.
No, but then what happened was because we love a bit of toxicity, don't we? So she's doing all of these things that are keeping us unbelievably safe.
Yeah.
And all they're commenting on is what she's wearing. She had the highest rate of bullying online than any other prime minister had ever had. She had people just, attacking her on a daily basis based on her looks, what she said, what she's,
You do it
so
for
the
a
more
man?
we call out on this behavior and talk about how it's so antiquated and in the past, and the more we push back on patriarchy and toxic masculine leaders, the more it's going to get bad. It's going to get worse before it gets better. But what is happening is great, right? Because like you first have to identify that you have an illness and that you're unhealthy in order to address this, right? So it is a really bad for a time for America, and of a lot of America is depressed, and also great because now we have an opportunity to go to therapy if we want to. We can also just spiral down, and we'll see what we end up choosing to do. But I love the fact that a lot of women are challenging men to step up, in ways that they haven't in the past, and that they won't tolerate, or they just won't marry men or be with men anymore if they're just going to continue to do the crappy things that they did before. There's a lot of studies that find that women actually live a longer life when they're not with a guy. I only want to bring a partner in if it's going to improve my life. So I love that women are pushing to higher standards. Now, having said that, what are some men doing? We're backlashing, right? We're getting more aggressive. What are who's represents a majority of shootings? Men, right? Because like we don't know how to handle our loneliness. And at this time, there are all these articles that are like, well, men are lonely, so what should we do about it? It's like, well, women shouldn't compromise to adapt to the fact that men are lonely. It's the fact that like we have to raise our standards
Level
of what
up.
it's like.
Yeah, you got to level up.
Or just be like, or expand what it means to be a man. And we're currently struggling with that identity crisis right now. This is why I love Barbie so much. There's like, I don't know, soliloquy or rant by American Ferrera of what it's like to be a woman.
I read that.
I had never known any of that as a man. I didn't know what that's like. I didn't know what it's like to always feel like you have to be perfect, but nothing's ever great enough, right? Like that is exhausting. Like,
well, I think that's why most women have such shitty self-esteem, because we're always like aiming for perfection, but then we're like, oh, we're also like, then we talk negatively to ourselves,
right?
Because we can't be too much or too little. We can't be too revealing or too conservative. Like you have to strike the perfect balance, and it's impossible because everyone's perfect is subjective,
right? And in addition to that, just like the level of safety, right? Like I can walk around at night as a 6-foot brown guy in Oakland, but most women, I would not recommend you walk around after a certain period of time. Like listening to I stay at a lot of hotels when I'm speaking, listening to my friends that are women speakers, the amount of extra things they have to do to make sure that they're safe going to a hotel is obscene, like in relation to what I have to do, right? From like making sure someone doesn't follow them in the elevator, making sure they don't know the room number, like making sure the door's locked. They even have an extra lock that they bring to block the door, like all these extra things. And I'm like, man, it is so much more exhausting to be a woman. And meanwhile, anytime a man has any level of like challenge, we start to freak out because we're like, oh my gosh, it's so horrible out here. Like, it's not easy for men anymore. And you're like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, what are you talking?
Yeah, what do men say that's not easy? I'm interested to hear. What do they think is not easy?
Well, right now, where you're like, oh, well, women have so many high standards now. Oh my gosh. They're
Oh, you mean we just want normal human decency? Yeah, such a fucking high standard.
Or we talked about this before, right? When the Me Too movement came and they were like, whoa, now I can't say anything to women. And you were like, what were you saying to women before?
Like what the fuck were you saying?
What? Can you not have a normal conversation without saying
Making
a
it sexual
sexual
or
innuendo in the middle of it? Like, are you that bad? Like, do you talk to that few women? You know?
How are you talking to your mother?
Exactly.
Yeah. What?
Like, I don't get it.
Do you have
I don't
sisters?
get it. Well, and not to go so far into this because I don't want to get too personal, but like I've seen where I've noticed men are most vindictive towards women and like mentally abusive towards women and sometimes physically abusive towards women is when they themselves have not had a good relationship with their mom. And they're getting back at women or getting back at their mom through that woman. And that's really sad, but like, and it's a lot of trauma. Again, it's a lot of trauma that they're not willing to address. And it's not popular for a lot of men to go to therapy. So they don't address it. So instead they use this as like an opportunity to treat women in a piss poor way. And it's really sad.
How do we change the narrative for men?
Wait,
is it
so what do you mean change the narrative? What do you mean by changing the narrative
of how we're raising our sons to
I mean, the way we do it is we show more vulnerable affection towards boys at a younger age.
Yeah.
Like we show them how to communicate their emotions through words, right? We show them, not just tell them, right? Because I think there's a lot of like telling, like this is how what you should do, but men should be exhibiting a certain level of healthy masculinity towards each other. A group that gives me a lot of hope is stay-at-home dads. There are some conferences I used to know people that would go to this conference called Dad 2.0. There's another conference called At Home Dads, and it's a lot of dads that are either stay-at-home dads or dads that spend a lot of time with their kids. And there's a lot of healthy masculinity and healthy femininity, right? So they do the laundry, they change the diapers,
because they have to.
They cook, they do all the things. So it's not like women's work and men's work anymore, right? Like we are able to embrace a more complex way of showing up. So I think when we're willing to embrace more of the gender spectrum of like, I have healthy feminine traits and I have healthy masculine traits, and I'm going to show my kids how to do that, that is where I think there can be healing. But as long as we polarize, right? As long as we're like women first men and they're this and this is that, and we're not willing to like embrace the complexity of it, that both men are aggressive and also they're very lonely. How do we let's have conversations around that, right? The more we're able to have those conversations and sit in the both, and that's when the healing is going to start to happen. And that's the stuff I advocate.
So what was, like, you seem like you'd be a great boyfriend or husband to a woman if that's what you want to do. But why did you become such a proponent of, like doing this? I mean, I know you had some incidences in your work, but like, was there?
Well, I'll try to answer it. I know where it comes.
Do you know what I'm getting at?
From.
Okay,
yeah. So again, right, from my origin story, I'm a play person. I love to play. Like that is my jam. And the reason why I love to play is play creates harmony. Play builds relationships with people. People see each other's inner child that way. That's where I think a lot of healing comes from, through play. I mean, heck, a war was started for a night, Christmas Eve in the trenches, because of play, right? So I see the power of play. Play is very feminine. It's collaborative, it's intuitive, it's all these things. So because I've embraced play, I have a lot of feminine traits that balance out the masculine traits. And because of that, I'm like, oh, when we play more, we get along more. And I just want people to get along more. Like, I just want a workplace to not suck. So when I go into a workplace and I'm like, why are y'all making it harder than you have to? Why do you have Chad in charge of everybody when Chad is currently under investigation for sexual harassment? 5 people have quit because of this guy. And also everyone is less productive every time he's at a meeting because he takes up 80% of the meeting. If we address Chad and not just him, like, let's not just get rid of him. Like, maybe the strategy is to get rid of him, but it's like, but we set boundaries, meaning like we don't support that behavior. Everyone likes work a little bit better. Like, why don't we do that? We're like at work 2,000 to 2,500 hours a year. Why are we putting ourselves through all this pain and suffering? So like, that's the vibe that I have. I'm just like, I see people miserable at work all the time. And I'm like, I say it all the time, work sucks, but it doesn't have to. So why are we letting it suck so much? Because we're allowing toxicity and toxic masculinity to thrive. That's why.
So can you give us an example of maybe an exercise you would have, like a Chad team or a team run by Chad, like in your example that you just gave us? Like, what would you have them do with play? Like, to kind of work, I don't know, to work out the situation?
Example of this, and the way I use play is like, it's experimental, right? So it's like, play is just all about testing stuff out. So let's say you have a Chad that takes up a majority of your meetings, like 80% of the meeting, they just talk all the time. So then what the play would be for you to talk to everyone else in the meeting and be like, listen, every time Chad cuts you off, every time Chad cuts off Gina or Nicola, like, be like, oh, excuse me, Chad, Gina was just about to share something. And also Gina's like the project lead on this. So she probably should have, she has a lot to say about this. So let's make sure, we hear from her, right? The more we start sending boundaries around Chad, the more it becomes less toxic for everybody else and more toxic for him. And then he has to decide, do I change my behavior because I still want influence here? Or can I not act like a 3-year-old child having a temper tantrum? So I'm going to leave, and then I'm going to leave the organization. So do that over 3 to 6 months where you have strategies around how you're going to start to take back over the meeting. That's one way. Another way is if Chad is the one that's running your meetings, right? And he's talking the whole time, confront that person directly and be like, what's the point of our meetings? Is the point of our meetings for us to like brainstorm and get a lot of ideas? If it is, right now that's not happening because you're talking a lot. Is that your goal? Like, what's your goal, right? What's your intent? Like, come from a place of objectivity, but challenge the notion of like what is actually happening. What we usually do is we just don't say anything and we're just like, well, that's just the culture. Everyone loves Chad. That's not the case. There's a lot of allies that just like aren't able to speak up because they don't see other people challenging power. And really what we need to do is challenge toxic power more.
Right. So how would you do that through play though? I think that was my question. How would you handle a Chad situation with what you teach people in terms of play?
But so what I'm saying is just like the play is in the experiment of these different strategies of challenging. So like play is, how am I going to cut him off at work in the workplace? Or how am I going to cut him off in the meeting? How am I going to give more room for everyone else to speak? Right? Like let's play with that experiment of us finally taking over the meeting over the next 3 months. Another play
I'm like thinking you're going to bring out like the battleships and be like now you.
We're not going to bust out Legos and just be like, okay, everybody, let's do the thing. It's more like, let's experiment with a lot of different strategies.
Just side note, I'm going to the Lego workshop. Which Lego workshop are you doing?
Workshop where there's candy and maybe some creativity play, like maybe some painting or sand art.
Or like the little, like you're making like a little pot with clay.
Yes, it's pottery.
And the other play that I would also challenge people to do is, and then I'm like, I'm going to confront Chad. Oh, I'm a little nervous about it. Okay, let's practice. Like, I will tend to be Chad and you be the other person. And let's practice over and over again. Let's run this scenario over and over again so that when you actually walk into that room, you're more likely to know how to adapt to it. And you won't get as nervous and back down. right? So that's what I'm talking about. Experiment, constant, being open to failure, constantly trying many different things out that are pushing power.
Here I was thinking that you were like bringing balls and shit on your like like your conferences.
I mean, I can. Like, I've done that
catch
too.
the ball. Was I way off base on that, Nicola? Did you think that too?
Yes.
Every day is a school day for us these days.
Oh my God, this whole week has been a fucking school
day. Our asses have been handed to us over and over and over again. But
this whole week.
You learn from it this whole week because we're like, we learned so much this week. It's been nuts.
You know what my biggest learning from this, I'd say this week was what? Probably, I'm going to say, reflecting on myself and not understanding the full scope of life, I didn't realize that neurodiversity is no longer a spectrum. I did not understand that. And I now understand that it is more of a
color wheel.
It's more of a color wheel. And I get that now. And I acknowledge that maybe I failed on that front and progressed the negative narrative around.
We have. You and I have. You and I have, even on our first season of the podcast, because we were very quick to be like, oh, maybe that person was neurodivergent. And it's like, we're just using that word like blanket, like in a blanket sense. And that's not at all okay.
No.
So we learned that. And I think my favorite, like, that was a good lesson for us to learn, that like we're being closed-minded without even realizing, like, we didn't set out to be that way. But I think my favorite thing that I learned about was data science and natural languages. Like, I'm just blown away that people do that. That's like a job.
That's like someone's job.
Like, it's
people
nuts.
Have weird jobs.
No, but it's so cool. Like, I would never be able to do it, but it's like the coolest thing ever. That was my fun learning experience for this week.
Something else that comes up when you share this is, I think also what we need to be challenging is we need to be challenging systems of power, but having empathy for people. I think we a lot of times, and I do it myself, I did it earlier with Elon Musk, right? We demonize people, but we don't challenge the system that put those people up in the first place. And the more that we can actually challenge the system that celebrates toxicity, the less we're going to actually produce toxic leaders. And the way we do that is we have to obviously build more empathy for each other. So if we can do that, then there's progress.
I think that's the overarching thing that I've learned the most since we started this podcast is better, like the better leaders we have are always empathetic. Yeah, like
empathetic, vulnerable.
Yep.
You know,
not afraid to say that was my fault, I messed up.
So the more we can celebrate empathetic, compassionate leaders that display shared humanity and prop them up, the more we can actually start to heal workplaces. That's all of the work that I'm just trying to do is like, can we celebrate more of the Jacinda Arderns and people like that, rather than us continuing to celebrate the patriarchal Rockefellers of the past that are not, they're just not contributing. They're just not helping.
They're not serving.
And frankly, in many ways, tying it back to climate change, their narcissistic ways of being is what's destroying the planet. Like, it's just not sustainable because they constantly want to win and they constantly want more and more and more. And that's just not healthy anymore. So
it isn't. And I think we are starting to see a shift, right? We're starting to see this shift in actually that's not good enough.
Yeah.
You know, I think granted it's a small shift, but you are starting to see it in certain places, you know, the Great Resignation. That's actually not good enough.
Well, I don't even know if it's small because like strikes that are happening with writers, you know, there's just strikes that were happening with flight attendants, just strike that happened with UPS workers, and then they got huge raises. There's strikes that are about to happen with all the major car dealerships in the US. So like it's building, it's happening. It's like it's coming together.
There's a groundswell.
Yeah.
Who do I have to join? I would like to join a movement. That's the movement we're going to join.
I don't know if I have the
having consistent bowel movements. That's another thing between men and women. Men can poop anywhere. They're like always so regular. I'm like lucky if I poop like once a week.
Or I can't use the work bathroom. Like, there's no way.
Oh my
Really?
gosh. Oh wow.
Oh my God, I
Really?
can't. Like,
Wow.
the idea of pooping in the public bathroom, oh my God, like, it's so scared. It's like in my throat.
Are
See,
you worried someone's gonna poop next to you? Or someone sitting next to
Maybe
you?
that's-
Like, what are you worried about?
I don't know.
You guys
Maybe I'm
can
worried
start a
that someone will
band.
hear me poop.
What I've done, like in my household, to like destigmatize pooping,
Oh my
I'll
God.
I'll be like, I gotta go poop. Like I will announce it, just like
Oh my
it's
God,
normal, right?
My child
Oh, yeah.
announces it.
Yeah.
Oh
So
yeah.
I will announce it, and then like if someone's in the bathroom and I hear them, I'll stand out. I'll stand outside the door and make fart sounds to cover theirs.
Oh my gosh.
I would never poop in
I'm
your
like,
house.
I'll be like,
My poop would just stay in my body for the rest of eternity. It
no,
would
like
become
I'm
like
trying
a
to
solid
help
lump.
the pooper out because I'm like, let me distract anyone else who's. If it's just me and the pooper, who cares? But if it's like me, like let's say Joe's pooping and it's getting loud, and there's like Lucia and
Why
Shanique,
is it
who's
getting
my daughter's
loud?
net.
Like, what sort of loud are we getting? Like, why is it loud?
I don't know, like you hear, stuff happens. I'll stand outside the door, like make fart sounds to try to cover it for them.
Wow.
But also secretly to kind of annoy them.
I will never poop at your house. In summary, I will just poop in the
Well,
car.
if it's just
I'll
you and
poop in
me,
the-
you
I'll
can
poop
go
In the
upstairs and
park.
I'll stay
In the
downstairs.
park. For people that are not comfortable pooping, y'all are very comfortable talking about pooping, which
Oh
is
no,
fascinating.
I'm comfortable pooping. I can poop anywhere. The thing that I'm uncomfortable about with pooping is that I don't go enough.
I just want to be invisible during poop time. Like, just make me invisible. Like, I don't even want to know that it's happening. Like, if
But
I
okay,
could...
here's a good thing though. Like men don't care. Men don't care. They will like be fighting for their life in the bathroom and walk out and don't give a shit. Why
Dude,
can't we?
seriously.
Okay.
I mean, do you see men at like sporting events or concerts? Like, do you see how fast that bathroom line moves? And we barely even wash our hands.
You're just like
there's like 80 women trying to get in the bathroom, and the men's line's like 2 guys, and they're just moving.
Men are like, in a word, they're animals. They'll just be like,
We're gross. We're gross.
get it out
We're
and keep
super
it
gross.
moving. Yeah.
Keep it moving.
Yeah.
Like we might swing our hand by the water,
which
and
is
maybe
so gross.
some soap might hit it. Maybe some soap might hit it.
Any man who doesn't wash their hands after number 2, you're gross.
Circle it back. Trying to circle it back.
I love that we went down the poop. We went all the way down the sewer of the poop. I think that's half this episode. I really hope we don't delete all of the poop. Wait, let me try something. I'm gonna add a sound bite that you can transition back from poop into toxicity.
Okay.
So as we've been talking about poop and diarrhea, I really feel, especially America's workplace right now, we're a body dealing with diarrhea, and I feel like the more we take some Pepto-Bismol, which is embracing some healthy femininity and some balance, we can finally get that out of our system and finally find, a certain level of healthy balance to this body again. So we're pooping out the toxicity. That's really what I'm saying. But we're gonna go through. But we had some spicy food, so we're gonna go. It's gonna be a little hard. We're gonna go through some times.
It's gonna burn the anus, and then we get to the other side.
And we're gonna get to the other side, and you won't know when we're gonna finish. We're gonna be like, oh, I don't know if I can get through this.
You're gonna be clawing the walls, but we'll be okay.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
I feel like
we've actually had really great interviews this week.
Yeah, this
for
is
various different reasons.
Oh, I love it. All
right, so Jeff,
where can we find you?
Yeah, where can people find you? Because I feel like everybody needs to find you, and I feel like they all need to hang out with you at some point because you were just high quality.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's so nice. So
agreed.
If people want to see my ridiculous videos where I make fun of the workplace and talk about dismantling patriarchy through play, my handle is at Chef Harry Plays, so JEFFHARRYPLAYS, and that's at TikTok, Instagram, Threads, Probably not Twitter anymore because I'm going to end that. YouTube, Medium, all the handles, LinkedIn, all that.
Okay.
And then if you want to cause mischief in the workplace and address power dynamics so that work doesn't suck so much anymore, then go to my website, rediscoveryourplay.com, and then just simply click on the Let's Play button and we can connect and explore how we can address all this toxicity so you can enjoy work finally instead of having it suck so much.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Okay, I just followed you on Instagram, and I love that in the first video you're wearing a terrible wig.
Oh, I have so many wigs. I have so many toxic leader wigs. I have like 4 or 5 wigs.
Wait, I'm coming for this too. I'm coming. Hold on.
Yeah.
I need to see the wig.
This is, but no, the one in the beginning of this, your wig is god awful, and I'm here for it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, they're the worst. They're amazing.
Yeah,
they're
but
amazing
it's like
on how ugly they are.
You walk into a store and you're like, "Give me your worst wig." It's perfect.
That's exactly what I did.
Oh my
God,
yes.
You see the blonde one, Nicola?
I have 5 wigs back here, even a pink wig, like a troll wig that I make videos with. Yeah.
I have to say that I'm like down your Instagram rabbit hole. I have to say that your Instagram is like the funnest thing I think I've been on.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I've been very serious on there recently.
Whoever is listening to this episode, if you are not subscribing to this channel,
this has been so much fun.
Yes. Sorry, we've gone way over time, and I'm sure you're very busy. But we got distracted by your Instagram.
I'll talk to y'all later. Thank you so much.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks, Jeff. Have a good one.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Let's Break Up, Toxic Workplace Stories. If you enjoyed our candid conversations and insights, don't forget to hit that like button, follow us on social media, and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform.